Tonight, the vaccine battle reaching a fever pitch.
Havoc in Australia for a second day.
In front of legislatures, city halls, and most pointedly, hospitals.
In recent times of medical uncertainty with the imposing fear of novel pandemics and the restructuring of healthcare infrastructures, movements have been caught in the crossfire in how we can deal with these predicaments. Of these movements, none have radicalized the medical field and society as a whole than the anti-vax movement. The anti-vaccination movement, which as the name implies, refers to people who disagree with the use of vaccines as a form of health intervention for infectious diseases. This belief, which has been propelled by social ideologies like libertarianism to an overall lack of education on the topic, has led the sentiment to grow beyond a mistrust of vaccinations to a larger suspicion behind the entirety of the pharmaceutical industry. However, with the origins of this movement muddled in various cultural, religious, and social interpretations, what if I told you that one person's research publication, a complete lie, cultivated this movement to what we see today? Andrew Wakefield, a former surgeon at the Royal Free Hospital in London, England, as well as a senior lecturer and honorary consultant in experimental gastroenterology at UCL School of Medicine, was garnering the attention of numerous medical professionals in the early 90s, with his novel correlations on the measles virus and Crohn's disease, a type of inflammatory bowel disease which affects the gastrointestinal tract. Although this specific hypothesis of Wakefield's was later disproved, Andrew had created a name around himself in the research field, and in doing so was contacted by someone who would change the trajectory of his career. In 1995, Wakefield, who was at the forefront of gastroenterology research in the UK, was approached by Rosemary Kessick, a parent of a child with autism, who had bowel issues related to allergies. From this appeal, Wakefield had shifted his attention away from Crohn's disease to focus on the possible existence of a correlation between autism and bowel diseases. As such, from 1996 to 1998, Andrew Wakefield led a 13-person research group which culminated in the infamous publication of the 1998 study in the Lancet. On the 28th of February 1998, Wakefield had his work published in one of the most well-respected British medical journals, the Lancet, with the backing of the Royal Free Hospital, where he conducted his research. During the study, Wakefield reported on 12 children with developmental disorders, as well as bowel symptoms to correlate the two variables, while suggesting a causatory link in the form of the MMR vaccine, a recent vaccine which combined vaccination for measles, mumps, and rubella together. Consequently, in the paper itself, Wakefield proposed a novel syndrome, aptly titled autistic enterocolitis, to cover this overlap between the developmental disorders as well as the bowel symptoms. Throughout the study, Wakefield defined autistic enterocolitis as an emergent inflammatory bowel disease phenotype, as a direct result of vaccine exposure. In the work, Wakefield continually built on the claim that since the immune system of children were still developing during this time, it made itself vulnerable for the proliferation of neurotoxins such as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which result in the development of regressive autism. Regressive autism occurs when a child appears to develop typically, but then starts to lose speech and social skills at about the age of 18 months, and is later diagnosed with autism. As such, for the publicity of the paper, Wakefield insisted on highlighting his revolutionary finding, which was promptly summarized in 3 words: vaccines caused autism. Defined by the statement, the study would cause a stir in the scientific community, and the public would soon begin to adopt this notion, resulting in mass vaccine hesitancy. Moreover, Wakefield himself began to adopt this anti-vaccination ideology, where he would go on to call out the British healthcare system to suspend the MMR vaccine in its entirety. With Wakefield's work reaching the forefront of the public with the news spreading like wildfire, the paper led to an immediate increase of about 70 MMR injury claims cases per month, with vaccine skeptics now having factual evidence for their assertions. The anti-vax movement grew by 7.6%. Although the general public were quick to accept this study, the scientific world was not. Upon publication, numerous researchers and investigative journalists were quick to double-check the validity of the study itself. But before we take a look at what was found in the study by these investigators, let's try to break down the areas in which Wakefield's study falls short. To begin, one of the reasons why the scientific world was hesitant to accept the study was mainly due to the fact that the study was actually a case report. What is a case report? Well, a case report is a series of anecdotes which compiles patient medical histories as primary evidence to support a claim. Understandably, these types of studies are not intended to create provoking conclusions. Rather, their intent is to support pre-existing claims that have gone through rigorous scientific studies. Nonetheless, even as a case study, the research paper still had ethical guidelines and academic standards it had to reach. But as the paper was deconstructed by investigators like Brian Deer, the study failed to meet these as well. Remember how I mentioned that the study focused around 12 child patients having behavioral symptoms? Well, of these 12, Wakefield claimed that 9 of these children had regressive autism, the complete foundation of his correlation. Shockingly, of the 12, only 1 had autism. Yes, you heard that right. 1 had regressive autism, whilst 3 of the 9 children he claimed had regressive autism had no form of autism whatsoever. Furthermore, half of the study's subjects were not even proper controls. The study, which relied on a pre- and post-evaluation of the MMR vaccination when administered to the 12 non-autistic children, failed to meet this context, reportedly falsifying the status of 5 of the children who had already had developmental and behavioral issues, meaning that any post-evaluation could be dramatized. Yet, from all this, the most mind-boggling part of the study was that all the patients were avid anti-MMR campaigners. Moreover, when the Sunday Times decided to investigate further into the data collected by Wakefield, it was found that the former physician fixed and manipulated the already biased data to create the appearance of the autism vaccine link. So from a flawed methodology to a compromised set of subjects, Andrew Wakefield's study was a criminal masterclass of manufacturing a pre-imposed narrative. And that's exactly what it was, a fabrication. In February of 2004, it was revealed by the Sunday Times that in 1996, Wakefield was approached by Richard Barr, a lawyer from JABS, or JABS, a British pressure group launched in January of 1994, which served as support group for the parents of children they claim became ill with epilepsy, brain damage, or autism after the MMR vaccine. Barr, who was looking for an expert witness to start a planned class action case regarding alleged vaccine damage, hired Wakefield at an astonishing £150 per hour plus expenses, providing Wakefield with the patients for his study. In doing so, Wakefield's involvement in this research project, which started off with an initial fascination in the subject, completely devolved into creating evidence for the class action lawsuit. At the end of the day, Wakefield walked away with £435,643 from JABS and the UK's Legal Aid Fund, funds which are meant to finance legal access to the underrepresented communities of the UK. With that all being said, on the 2nd of February 2010, the Lancet officially retracted the paper after years and years of continuous research trying to prove the link between autism and the MMR vaccine. Urged by Brian Deer's work with the British Medical Journal and the General Medical Council proceedings, who were simultaneously examining Andrew Wakefield's involvement, the Lancet officially retracted the paper, as put forward by the BMJ editors in an editorial following the retraction. Clear evidence of falsification of data should now close the door on this damaging vaccine scare. Who perpetrated this fraud? There is no doubt that it was Wakefield. Is it possible that he was wrong but not dishonest? That he was so incompetent that he was unable to fairly describe the project or to report even one of the 12 children's cases accurately? No. A great deal of thought and effort must have gone into drafting the paper to achieve the results he wanted. The discrepancies all led in one direction. Misreporting was gross. Even with a complete retraction from the Lancet and a major loss in the credibility of the journal, the damage of the publication still persists to this day, as seen in the rise of the modern-day anti-vax movement, still clinging on to the study as its foundation. To summarize the impact of Wakefield's work, Fiona Godley, the editor of the BMJ, stated in January of 2011 that the original paper has received so much media attention with such potential to damage public health that it is hard to find a parallel in the history of medical science. Many other medical frauds have been exposed, but usually more quickly after publication and on less important health issues. Yet, with that being said, a burning question which remains unanswered is what is Andrew Wakefield up to right now? After losing his medical license by being struck off the medical register for his involvement in the study, Wakefield moved away from the UK in favor of the US, where he continues to stand by his anti-vax perspective, defending his countlessly disproven research and conclusions, saying that there was no fraud, hoax, or profit motive from his end. All in all, the MMR vaccine controversy serves as a reminder of the high standards and sphere of influence that science plays in shaping the society we live in. This specific case illustrates the detrimental effects of misinformation and how it can shape the beliefs and values of people for years to come, creating ripple effects in the fabric of our social structure. In doing so, we must hold ourselves accountable on a daily basis to not only challenge the information we receive, but build the skills it takes to evaluate the perspectives of multiple parties that are at play. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to hit the subscribe and like button to stay tuned for some more interesting videos. Also, be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks, and take care.